let's take a look at the control rig we'll work with. The scene is 02 begin. So what we have here is the DT puppet, and this rig actually includes IK and FK limbs. A right click anywhere in empty space on the toolbar and reveal layers. I'll go ahead and just dock that to the top. Alright, so taking a look at our layers, I'll go ahead and hide the character's geometry. I'll show bones, but we'll want to hide the geometry and show the objects to hide layer. So you can see we have several helpers here, and each limb, each bone, has been orient constrained to each helper. Now, what controls the helper is an FK control. I'll go to the FK controls layer for the character's left leg. Go ahead and show that. So the helper here has been linked to this control object. Now if I were to go ahead and select the left shin and move over to the motion panel, here's the weight for the orient constraining. You can see it's off right now. What we do is use wire parameters to set up the switch so that when we're in IK mode, this weight is set to 0, and FK it's set to 1. If you'd like to learn how to create IK-FK systems, feel free to take a look at our character rigging for production tutorial. Now this is a more simplified approach because what this does is it not only adjusts the weight here, but then it will tell Max to go in and turn on or off this enabled switch. Now we run a series of Max grips in a specific order to make sure that when we switch between IK and FK, the arm or the leg will not flip out. So essentially what we do is we first turn off the weight or turn it on, and then we go ahead and tell Max to either turn the enable button on or off. Now the parameters that have been wired, they're all tied to the center of gravity. If I were to head over to the modify panel, you can see these buttons here that we should not touch, but these work in the background to switch between IK and FK. So once the buttons are active, that means we're in IK mode. When they're off, that means we're in FK mode. So that's essentially how this works. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the toolbar that was created so we can go ahead and work faster between switching between IK and FK. Before we do that, I'll just go ahead and hide the character's bones. I'll go ahead and hide the objects to hide layer, and I'll go ahead and show his geometry again. And we'll move to customize user interface. So essentially I've just come over here and created a new toolbar. We can name it whatever we'd like, and then once we do, we could start to add scripts that we create from the script editor here, just simply highlighting those lines of code and adding it to the toolbar. So if I were to head over to load, I'll go ahead and load in the toolbar from here, and I have added it to your project. So with that selected, I'll choose open. Alright, so I'll go ahead and drag this over, and we'll take a closer look at what this does. So just looking at the left leg here, I'll go ahead and right click on the FK button and choose edit macro script. So this first line of code here, this is what can be accessed from the listener window. Okay, I'll go ahead and right click and open up the listener window. So we can access this command from here by simply clicking on this button. So if I were to go ahead and turn this off, turn it back on, you can see here's the code. And then we just need to specify the object to make sure that this turns on or off on the right object. But the second line of code is not accessed from the listener window. So this is how we turn on or off the enabled button. We'd either set this to 1 or 0. However, with our buttons, we'd either type in on or off. So that's basically what this does. Now at the very top, I've just added a comment so we know exactly what this is used for. This is to switch to our FK leg. So what I'll do, just to make sure that this is run properly, is just make sure that this has been saved. Alright, so if you decide to make any changes to the code, you want to make sure it's saved out. Otherwise, Max won't know what you're trying to do, and the code may not work. Alright, so I'll just go ahead and close this out. But essentially, that's what we do here. Now, Notice I have also added a widget here to turn on or off auto key. So in case we decide to switch between IK and FK and animate that switch, we can go ahead and do so from here using these buttons. I'll go ahead and right click and choose Edit Macro Script to show you how this happens. So essentially we type in Max Tool and a mode, and then following that we tell Max what to do. Set Animate On to turn auto key on, or set off to turn it off. So pretty basic, but again very helpful. So with that said, the next thing we're going to go ahead and discuss is our axis order. Now this is important for our arms here, our FK arms. We're using FK arms because we'll be able to achieve arcs much faster that way. However, that doesn't mean they'll come easy. Let me close out this UI here. So with our FK arms, we need to think about our axis order, or any objects that we plan on rotating. For our legs, we won't need to switch the axis order on those at all. But again, for the arms that will be swinging quite a bit, we need to choose a good axis order, because if we don't, we could run into gimbal lock issues that can be annoying to clean up. What I'll do is go ahead and turn off auto key. I'll move back to layers just to go ahead and hide the FK controls on the left leg so we can stay focused here. And now with the left shoulder selected, I'm going to go to the rotate tool, pressing the E key. I'll make sure that we're viewing this in gimbal mode so we can see the true orientation of this object. I'll press the W key to switch over to the move tool, and we'll switch this to parent mode. So that's the space we'll use when it comes to animating our center of gravity and also the legs. But you'll see that the FK controls are locked down. And again, if you'd like to learn more about this, feel free to take a look at our character rigging for production tutorial. Alright, but if I were to go to the rotate manipulator and start to rotate down, you can see instantly we run into gimbal lock and we lose control in one direction. If I were to rotate this over in the Z-axis and then add a twist here, you can see that this might seem ideal, but eventually as we start to animate this, we would run into some bad gimbal lock interpolations, and we'd use tools like the Euler filter in our curve editor to fix that. But then when we start to add more animation to create better arcs, again we would run into some flipping issues. So instead we need to choose a suitable rotate order so we don't have to worry about those problems. Currently, if we were to go to our motion panel underneath rotation and scrolling down here, we could see the current axis order. Right now it's XYZ, and this isn't always the best. If we were just animating basic rotations, we might use this. But I find that an axis order of ZXY actually would work best here, at least for our shoulder controls. You can see when we rotate down now and rotate forward how convenient that is. So that's what we're going to use just for our FK shoulders. We don't have to do this for the forearms nor the wrists, so we'll just animate in one axis. But again, for the shoulders, we'll want these to be switched. And this really depends on your animation. You might find that another axis order would work best for your needs. You just want to kind of test it out. Just don't jump into your animation. Make sure that you have the correct axis order. Otherwise, again, you can run into some issues that are annoying to clean up. Now, the last thing I'd like to point out is we have a selection set we'd want to create to just go in and grab all of our controls to quickly create animation. So, with all of our controls highlighted in the scene, minus the global control, I'll go ahead and deselect that so we don't add any unwanted keyframes. I'll just go ahead and use Alt and click to deselect it. But with all of these selected, we can now go to the top and create a selection set. I'll choose Create New Set, and we can name this Controls. Alright, great. So from there, if we wanted to find the controls that were added, we can do so by expanding this. If we'd like to remove a control, it's just a matter of highlighting the control to remove, and we can go ahead and choose Subtract from here, or we can add it back from here. If we'd like to remove this set, just go ahead and highlight the set and choose Remove. It's really straightforward. But now we have a way to quickly go in and highlight all of those controls so we can set keyframes much faster. All right, so that's a look at the rig we'll work with. And the next lesson, we're going to take a look at some reference images of some poses that we go through in a run, and we'll also get started on our exercise.